Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're looking at some really compelling source material that a listener, Kun Tum, shared with us. It's from a YouTube account, and it details some deeply strange, kind of unsettling events that happened to their family and others. This is all set in a rural village in Thailand.
That's right. And what we've got are two quite personal accounts. They describe phenomena that are, unexplained. And while they definitely touch on elements familiar from Southeast Asian folklore, the specific, very intimate details that the witnesses shared, well, they offer a uniquely chilling perspective, very grounded.
Yeah, grounded is a good word. So our mission today is basically to unpack these two stories. We want to look at the core events, understand the vivid, and sometimes, frankly, terrifying details from the people who actually lived through them, and maybe see what these accounts tell us about local beliefs and that thin veil between the world we think we know and, well, something else. We'll explore things exactly as they were described in the source material by the narrator and the people involved. Okay, let's get into it. We'll start with something that happened over 10 years ago. It's a story about someone being right there, but somehow completely unseen.
Right. So this first story, it takes us back about 12 years. Our listener, Kun Tum, wasn't there himself, but it happened to his older brother, Toon. The setting is the family's rice field, out in the countryside. Toon was just a little kid back then. He's playing near the little field shelter, while his grandparents are working nearby, digging holes for vegetables.
And the grandparents, they were keeping an eye on him, obviously. He was right there, playing. But then the grandmother looks over, and he's just gone, vanished. Like 1 second there, the next, not. You can only imagine the panic, that immediate awful feeling. They start searching frantically, shouting his name, looking all around the shelter.
And when they can't find him right there, the grandmother rushes back to the house. Kun Tum's mother joins in, and pretty soon it sounds like the whole village gets involved. The source describes this big search effort, people looking everywhere, all around the field, through the village, checking friends' houses.
And there was this specific fear building, wasn't there? The rice field was located near the village pond. And tragically, there had been incidents before, kids drowning in that pond. So that was the immediate terrible thought everyone had. A lot of the search focused right there on the pond. They were using nets, people were diving in, but they found absolutely nothing.
No, nothing. And as it starts getting dark, hope is really fading. The family, they tried everything conventional. They were actually preparing to go find a spiritual doctor, someone who might offer help through other means.
Right. But then, just as they were about to do that, something happens. An elderly woman from the village, Aunt Choi they called her, she finds Tun. And get this, she finds him back at his own house.
Yeah.
Safe. Just playing with toy cars, drinking milk. Apparently completely unaware of the hours of terror and searching everyone had just gone through.
Yeah, it's quite the turn. Huge relief, of course, but also total confusion. How did he get home? Why hadn't anyone seen him there before? Where on earth had he been? And Tun, even though he was young, he was able to tell them later what happened from his point of view and his story. Well, it filled in the blanks.
He said he saw an old woman he didn't know standing near the edge, the levee, of the next field over. Just called her aunt. And interestingly, he said back then he wasn't really scared of strangers. So when she sort of beckoned him over, he just went.
She apparently offered him some snacks, traditional ones, but he said they looked weird, unappetizing. So he didn't take them. Then she invited him to come play over in her field, and he said, okay.
So he follows her down into this lower part of her field, and apparently because the levee was quite high, if a small kid was down there, you wouldn't easily see them from the main path or the shelter area. You'd have to walk right up to the edge.
Exactly. So he's playing down there. He said the aunt was standing behind him at first, but then after a bit, he turned around and she was just gone.
He didn't seem too bothered by that initially. He just figured, okay, time to go back to his grandparents.
Okay, and this is where it gets really strange, really unsettling for him. He gets back to the area where his grandparents had been working, near the shelter, and nobody's there. But he can hear them, hear his family calling his name. Grandfather, mother, grandmother, sometimes sounding far away, sometimes close. He's shouting back, I'm here! I'm right here! He's running towards their voices, even jumping up and down, trying to get them to see him. Just imagine that. For a child, hearing your family, maybe seeing them nearby, shouting, waving, hoo-hoo, and they just look right through you, they can't see you, can't hear you. He apparently got really frustrated, maybe scared. He thought they were playing some kind of mean trick on him. Eventually, he just gave up and ran all the way home crying. And that's where Aunt Choi found him.
Wow. And based on that story, his account, the villagers had a specific explanation, didn't they? Something rooted in their folklore. They believed he was affected by how do you say it? Pi Bang Ta.
Yes, Pi Bang Ta. It translates roughly to ghost blinding or spirit hiding. The core idea in Thai folklore is that a supernatural entity doesn't necessarily take you away physically. Instead, it uses some kind of illusion or power to make you invisible to people nearby, even people actively looking for you. So Tuman's experience being right there, hearing them, shouting back, but being totally unseen and unheard, fits that concept perfectly. That detail about hearing them but not being heard back, that adds a particularly cruel layer to it, doesn't it? Being hidden in plain sight like that.
It really does. So after all this, the family took him to the temple the next day for blessings, protective threads, that kind of thing. And for a long time after, he absolutely refused to go back to that field. Understandable. Oh, and there was one detail that stuck with him, even years later. The clothes the aunt was wearing. He described them as really old-fashioned. Not like anything people wore then, almost like she was from another time.
That clothing detail is interesting. It hints that maybe the entity wasn't just, a local spirit, but something older, maybe not quite human. This whole account, it's such a specific first-hand description of what people understand as Pi Bang Ta. It's not just he disappeared, it's the luring, the specific hiding place, the interaction attempt, and that terrifying inability to be seen or heard by loved ones right nearby. It's a powerful example of how these folkloric concepts can play out in someone's actual traumatizing experience.
It really makes you think twice about familiar places, doesn't it? Fields, paths. Okay, so building on that, let's move to the second story. This one's from the same listener's family, same village, but it's more recent, 2018. And this time, our listener, Kun Tum, was directly involved, along with his mother. And it sounds, well, even more visceral.
Yes, this happened about 7 years ago now, back in 2018. The village was getting ready for some kind of religious ceremony, and Kun Tum's mother was practicing chants for a competition.
Right, so one evening, maybe 8:30 p.m., his mother is closing a window, and she sees this weird light off in the distance.
She described it as green and sort of orange-reddish,
Right.
and it wasn't steady. It was flickering, pulsing, like something was moving inside it or making it pulse.
She's watching it, trying to figure out what it is, and it starts moving closer towards their house. She gets worried, calls out for Kun Tum, who is downstairs.
So Kun Tum runs up, he looks out, sees the light too, this pulsing green and reddish light. And here's the really chilling part. He said he had this immediate, terrifying feeling he could see a woman's head above the light, with messy hair covering her face. He said the sight just hit him with pure terror, started shivering, couldn't speak.
Wow. But even feeling that terrified, he and his mother just watched from the window, quietly. They watched this thing, this light, with what seemed like a head, float towards their chicken coop.
And this is where the description just becomes incredibly graphic and disturbing. And they apparently said later that seeing it up close like that was, and I quote, 1,000,000 times scarier than any picture or story you might hear about this kind of creature.
Yeah, they gave these really specific, visceral details. They said they could see internal organs, intestines, the heart dangling below the head, and they described them looking fresh, like visibly moving, writhing, and maybe the worst part, constant dripping, blood and pus. And the source emphasizes this absolute awful, nauseating smell that came with it.
Right. These aren't just visual cues, it's multisensory. The sight, the movement, the smell, the dripping fluids, it grounds it in this horrifying physical reality for them. The level of detail, the freshness, the movement, the pus, the specific smell that really takes it beyond a standard folktale description of, say, a Krasue. It feels raw, like something truly witnessed.
It does, but what's almost unbelievable, given that description, is what happened next. The mother's reaction. After seeing this absolute nightmare floating near her chickens, the source says she wasn't scared anymore. She just calmly grabbed a flashlight and decided to go after it, to chase it away.
Incredible bravery. Or maybe just pure adrenaline, hard to say. But yeah, she chased it, followed the flickering light as it moved off, away from their house, heading towards the village pond area, and that's the same general area near the rice field from the first story. She chased it right to that spot, and then, poof, the light just vanished. Disappeared right there.
And this sighting wasn't just them. There's confirmation, right? Later that night, they were heading to the temple, and they ran into a nun. They told her what they saw, and the nun confirmed she'd seen something similar, a flickering green and orange-red light, around the same time. And she saw it floating from the village cemetery, past the temple, and heading towards that same pond area.
That's significant confirmation. And apparently this whole thing became huge news in the village almost immediately. Kunta mentions other villagers also came forward, saying they'd seen a similar light around that time. So this widespread witnessing, it really cemented the reality of it for people, especially the kids, led to a lot more fear. People started being much more careful, making sure windows were locked up tight at night.
And the source says, as far as they know, this creature, this Krasue, hasn't been seen in the village since then, since 2018. It's been about 7 years. But even though it hasn't come back, the event is still talked about. It clearly left a huge mark.
Absolutely. And if we connect this to the wider folklore, the description aligns very strongly with the Krasue legend found across Southeast Asia, usually depicted as a female spirit, head detached, trailing organs, hunting at night, often for blood or viscera. But what makes this account stand out is that raw sensory detail, the freshness, the movement, the dripping, the smell. It just intensely, viscerally horrifying.
And like you said, it's really striking that both stories, the ghost blinding and the Krasue sighting, seem to connect to that same location, the village pond area near the fields. First story, it's where Toon was maybe taken or hidden. Second story, it's where the Krasue was heading and where it vanished.
Exactly. That repetition of the location feels important. It suggests that, at least in the local perception, this specific area might be seen as a kind of liminal space, a place where the boundary between our world and something else is maybe thinner, more active. It's interesting you have one story about a deceptive hiding entity, Hibangta, and another about this terrifyingly physical, visible entity, Krasue, both converging on the same spot.
So, when you put it all together, what do we take away from these stories? These really unsettling accounts from this one village. You've got these two very different events, decades apart, but in the same community. One about being unseen, one about seeing something truly horrific. It paints a picture of a place where maybe that line between the ordinary and the extraordinary is, well, more permeable than we usually think.
I think that's right. These narratives, they show the real impact unexplained events have on people, on families, on a whole community. They show how folklore isn't just abstract stories. It can intersect with life in incredibly personal, tangible, and often terrifying ways. Leaves lasting marks, changes how you see familiar places. And the contrast is stark, isn't it? The almost playful, though scary trickery of the ghost blinding versus the sheer body horror of the Krasue encounter. Yet, like you said, both seem drawn to these specific, perhaps spiritually charged locations, the field, the pond.
So what's the bottom line here? What does it all mean?
Well, perhaps it means that some mysteries just remain mysteries. Even with detailed accounts, multiple witnesses, links to folklore, understanding these things might require us to look beyond just standard explanations. We have to consider belief, local context, the power of place, and maybe the possibility that the world holds things we just can't easily perceive or explain away. These accounts are pretty potent reminders of that, I think.
They certainly are. It definitely gives you something to think about.
Yeah.
So here's a thought to leave you with. Imagine it's dark, you're near one of those quiet, edge-of-the-village places, a field, a pond. How would you react if you saw a light you just couldn't explain? Or maybe worse, what if you felt yourself shouting, knowing you were right there, but realizing nobody could hear you? Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into these really fascinating and pretty chilling accounts shared by our listener.
Yes, exploring these personal stories, it really highlights how valuable they are for understanding how folklore, belief, and unexplained experiences weave together in people's lives. We appreciate you bringing them to us.
We hope you'll keep exploring, keep questioning, and maybe keep just a little bit of an open mind about the world around you. Until next time.